So there's a little bit of a line over at the registration table, and we'll let those people get seated. So while they're doing that, I just want to welcome you here and say thank you for coming on this beautiful fall afternoon on a Friday here at the Center for Spiritual Living. And about the center, they donated this space to us to have this really important community conversation. So I heard some applause. Let's go ahead and thank them. So I want to ask you all a question. Why do ghosts like to ride elevators? Anybody know? I heard it.
It lifts their spirits. It lifts the spirits.
So in case you wanted to know, that's the answer. So seriously now, I want to let you know that the bathrooms are over here. And today we're going to be hearing a lot of presentations about things that people are doing that work to address the homeless emergency. And they're going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 minute presentations, and we worked this all out with the presenters ahead of time. Sorry, my timekeeper's paying attention. 3 to 10 minute presentations. And the presenters all know their time, and our good timekeeper here will keep us on track. You all have a folder that has an agenda in it that has the full schedule, but some of you might want to know the important details that we'll break for a snack around 2 o'clock, and we'll end at 5 today. So now I'd like to introduce you to a special guest who is with us today. And this is Karen, and she has a poem about why we're here today. Karen is a teacher and is currently unhoused. She's going to read a poem that she wrote from her experiences and observations about homelessness.
Okay. Can you hear me back there? All right. Ticketed, arrested, harassed and outcasted, displaced and disgraced, so many faces end up faceless after losing their addresses. Each with their own tale to tell, their story about how they fell and how one day they woke up camping out on a trail, in a tent or RV, hungry, cold and wet, the faceless face forgotten, desperately desperate to hold on to what's left, their dignity, their individuality, slowly losing their grip on their sanity, while being chased from place to place, around the city by heat, their property taken by the police. Encampments raided and disintegrated, civil rights violated, left standing in the street or by a creek with nothing left to put to feet. Angry, yet feeling lucky to still be free, and not sitting and booking, eating that gross bologna. But the reality is that actually they are trapped because there's nowhere, anywhere to legally be. And they're fed plenty of bologna by the powers that be. Here, there, and everywhere in between, the city doesn't seem to care. Sweep after sweep, the mayor declares, "We don't want to see your face on our streets. Go away or go to jail and be beat." Those without houses ultimately betrayed, abandoned by their community and shamed. So many of the faceless faces exclaim, "Where's the humanity, the compassion? Where's the love?" Hear them calling out from the shadows, the young, the old, the disabled, the widows, the hopeless, the cold, and all those in the middle of despair. Over here and over nowhere, everywhere, so many faces turning faceless, sad and frustrated, less patient but still waiting. In between the rain, from the alley, hear them praying, "In Jesus' name, May universal grace open up the hearts of those who judge with haste, of those who discriminate and segregate. May the divine open their blind eyes to see the errors of their hate-filled ways. Standing in your light, may your guidance lead to change, so that everyone can have a warm place to stay, a safe and healthy abode to proudly call their own happy zone. In Jesus' name, make it so. I don't know who's next.
Thank you so much for sharing your work, Karen. It's a hard act to follow. Clearly, people who are homeless are suffering greatly, and that's why we're here today. So, communities across the U.S. are facing unprecedented challenges. And here in Sonoma County, with almost 2,000 unsheltered homeless, it's a top priority here in Sonoma County. And this is a video over from Apollo Way, and you can see that also business owners are suffering. It's not a welcoming, nice atmosphere for people to come and do their business. And homeowners who have garbage and things, they're suffering too, but most cruelly and visibly of all, the unsheltered homeless are suffering. So this is a very large challenge, and it's not a normal situation. It's an emergency. We even call it a homeless emergency. And that's why I'm here today, because I want my grandson to know. You're going to see him pop up here in a minute. We didn't get the timing quite right. But I want him to know that this is not a normal time that we're living in right now, and that what he sees when he walks around isn't normal. And I want him to know that his Nana is working with a lot of other good-hearted people to find solutions for this emergency. So there he is. So this is my client. I don't know who your client is, but I ask you, what kind of future do you want to pass on to future generations? And this is a very large challenge, so I want to show you some evidence. Catherine's going to help me here. This is from physics. Physics tells us that this is so. And this is just a 1-minute video, so please bear with me. And with the technology. and I can explain it if it's just not cooperating. Oh, Catherine's watching it. She can tell you about it.
Well, how is it?
Well, okay, so I'll just tell you what the deal is. So this guy, he has a domino that's about as big as your fingernail, about as thin and tall and wide as your fingernail.
What you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino.
Okay. So he was just about to tell you that a domino can knock over another domino that's 1.5 times its size. And so what he does is he takes this teeny tiny domino and he puts it at the beginning of this chain of dominoes that he set up. And you should know that this domino at the very end weighs 100 pounds. And this is 13 dominoes, but he says if he builds it out to 29 dominoes, this teeny tiny domino can knock over the Eiffel Tower. So I just want you to know that this is a very big challenge, but we can do it if we just work on the next domino. And so that's what we're going to start doing here today. So we're going to talk about resources. We're going to talk about HEAP funding that's coming into the county and the opportunities that creates. Our presenters will give you ideas, and we hope that lifts your spirits, just like those ghosts riding elevators, and gives you ideas that we can move forward with. And at the end, we'll tell you some ways that you can stay in touch and keep moving forward with this. So, oh yes. So our next guest needs no introduction. We are fortunate to have Julie Combs, Santa Rosa City Councilwoman here joining us today to do the official welcome.
Thank you. Wow. I have to figure this out for a second. First, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I have to have the mic really close. It's very much appreciated. I am often engaged in conversations about homelessness in which folks talk about whose problem it is, who's at fault, who should fix it. And I hear a variety of answers. It's the city's fault, it's the county's fault, it's the fault of a homeless person. None of that is true. We have a systemic problem. We have a community-wide problem. And we are all going to need to work together to fix it. It's going to take all of us. Some of us have more leverage. We may be a bigger domino piece. Some of us are a smaller domino, but we can still do things. So I very much appreciate that example. Some of us can get so much more done, but even those of us who are in a position where we could maybe get a lot done, we need everyone's help to do it too. As a city, we've declared a homeless emergency. That allows us to have some flexibility within zoning rules. As a city, we've declared a shelter emergency, and that will allow us to implement structures that don't meet state building code. As a city, we've declared a fire emergency, and that's the only emergency that the state and federal government have funded. So a lot of folks say, why is it if we've declared these emergencies, isn't there money? And one of the reasons is because we only got state and federal assistance for a disaster for the fire, even if we declared the others disasters. As a culture, we sometimes pay a lot of attention to the fast disaster, the fire type disaster. I'm sure you've all heard the boiling frog story, where if you put a frog in boiling water, they jump right out. But if you put a frog in water and slowly but surely warm it up, it will cook them and they don't think to jump out. Our homeless emergency is a lot like the slow fire, the slow disaster. And we didn't figure out to jump out as a community. We are just now figuring that out. So, who's affected? Seriously and significantly, at least 2,000 people are affected directly. 800 students at the JC who aren't sleeping housed. And we're expecting them and praising them for all the wonderful things that they're doing to, do stuff for themselves, to lift themselves up. I mean, this is a population that's doing all the right things. They're still homeless. We can't be blaming them. We need to help them find housing. They aren't the only one affected, though. Homeless people aren't the only ones affected. Everyone in the community is affected if we have any one homeless person. We all are affected by that. No one wants someone they don't know sleeping in their backyard. None of us want someone pooping in the creek. Nobody wants that. And we can take action together so that we don't have that situation. So the City Council has set a goal of what is called functional zero homelessness. I am proud of that goal. We've also established a Housing First model. Housing First has more than one interpretation. And sometimes we have disagreements on our council about how we are interpreting Housing First. And we do have folks for whom the insubstantial monies that are coming from the state and federal government to cities and counties, some people think all of that should go to building housing. I strongly support Measure N. I am grateful they are here. Please vote yes on N. N is in neighbor. Please do support that. Those monies will go for affordable housing. And also know that I'm a supporter of the concept that we, in addition, need to provide transitional services, supportive services, safe parking, sanctioned villages. There are many more things that we as a community can be doing that cost even less if what we do is support and embrace people while we wait for their housing to be built. Because that housing isn't going to be built in a year, tomorrow, in a year, in 5 years. It's going to take a long time for us to build over 2,000 residential units on top of the 3,000 residential units we need to build for the people who are moving here. And not homeless people, just folks moving here. We have to build a lot of housing fast. So from my point of view, one size does not fit all. And it never has. And we've all known it, right? We've all known one size doesn't fit all. So some people can be served in a gymnasium cot. Some people can be served in a hotel. Some people can be served in an apartment. Some people need a tiny home. Some people need mental health services. Some people need down payment assistance. Some people need a landlord who will take their Section 8 voucher. We have a variety of solutions, and no one solution is going to solve this. So one of the things that I really hope that I get from you, and forgive me, I'm asking something from you, and that's to bring your creative solutions to me. Bring creative solutions to our council. Bring solutions that we can work with you to achieve, because we're going to have to do this together. It's a community issue. We need a community solution. And I very much thank you for engaging in the conversation and for helping us get from here to the vision we have of people who find they need housing and within 30 days have it. Thank you. I'm not sure who's next, but thank you. And absolutely. So I was just asked, how do we go about that? So absolutely, one of the things will be that what your outcomes are of your conversations today, I would hope to see that. Another thing is, I will right now give you my email. If you have a pen and a piece of paper, I will tell you my email.
There's Post-its in your folder.
There's Post-its in your folder. My email is very easy. J, that's my first initial, I'm Julie. J Combs, just like what you do to your hair. So it's J Combs at SR City, Santa Rosa City, srcity.org. My home phone number. You will get a machine because I'm here, I'm never there, right? You'll get a machine. My home phone number, 707-542-1906, just like the earthquake. Easy to remember, 542-1906. I am not the only council member. I am one of 7. It takes 4 council members to make change. So write to me and go on the website for the City of Santa Rosa council members. There is a button there where you can send a message to all of us. You will be most effective in sending a message if you have organized, if there is a group of you, and if you have suggestions that involve solutions. I often hear from folks, I'm upset because there's a homeless person in my backyard, move them. I appreciate that they are upset. It would be more helpful if they said, what can I do to help you create housing for that person? Okay? That's what I'm looking for. So if you want a solution, if you want us to help get to a solution, help us by bringing a solution. I don't know if Jack is on your agenda or not, but I want to point out that Jack Tibbetts is here. Jack is also a remarkable ally, and it has been a pleasure to work with this young man on council. He has been very active in the Measure N process as well. And if I may say one more thing, I know I'm way over on time. There's a new model for the continuum of care coming to Sonoma County, and that includes electeds on the continuum of care. It will be a 9-member body. The intent of putting electeds on the continuum of care is that we become more responsive to the public. I am going to be one of those electeds on the new continuum of care. So I'm hoping that you will also start coming to continuum of care meetings, which are publicly noticed open meetings, and give us feedback there too. And sign the application form to be on the technical advisory committee that supports the continuum of care. Thank you.
Great. So that was a very thorough description of how you can bring solutions forward to the City Council. And you'll find in your packet there's information about the continuum of care meetings and email information about the City Council, but not so thorough as what Julie just gave us. So next I'd like to introduce our experts on HEAP funding. This is that $12.1 million that's coming to the county. And we'll have Gregory Farron speaking. He's been retired many years after 30 years of work building partnerships between government and the community. He continues that work with his own resources and the help of his partner, Pat Kuta, who's also here today. And he's an active member of Homeless Action and can be found advocating for change at an enormous number of meetings. We also have Michael Gauss, who is the Homeless Programs Coordinator of the Sonoma County Community Development Commission. One of his many tasks is to provide staff support for the continuum of care. As many of you know, that group has had a change in leadership, like Julie was just describing, and will be the final decision makers for the $12.1 million. That's one of the reasons we've come together today.
So, good afternoon. Gregory, okay if I go first, or what is that? Okay. I'm going to do my best to drive this thing. There's no clicker, so bear with me. If you can't hear me, let me know. Sure. It might be a little annoying and saying, next slide, next slide, next slide. So as Jillian mentioned, I'm the Continuum of Care Coordinator with the Community Development Commission. We are the lead agency for the Continuum of Care. Will be going forward temporarily, unless that changes in the future. We can start. I'm going to give you a quick overview as fast as I can of the new leadership structure and then HEAP and CASH funding, and I will try not to do acronym soup. So as Councilmember Combs mentioned, we do have a new system of care governance structure that is taking place right now, the redesign. A little overview right now, we've had up to a 15-member board for the COC before, but does not include elected officials and has been kind of a mix of high-level decision makers and others. So we're really trying to revamp that overall plan here as far as providing leadership and policy direction and really aligning public and private services and funding for homeless services. This is what the system of care is going to look like. So if you see on the right, the lead agency is us for now, the Community Development Commission. That could change in the future. We have a leadership council that Councilmember Combs mentioned that is going to be comprised of 9 individuals. 5 of them are elected officials. Those 5 are already set. So that's Councilmember Combs and Schwedhelm from the city of Santa Rosa, Councilmember Gabe Kearney from the city of Petaluma, and then Supervisors Hopkins and Gorin from the Board of Supervisors. And there's going to be 4 additional members. I'll get to that in a second. You'll see task groups. One of my jobs over the last few years as COC coordinator has been trying to staff, along with Carissa, who's a rock star over here. She works with me in my office. Up to 10 or 15 different groups that don't have a lot of structure, that don't have a formal reporting structure. We're going to consolidate those down to about 6 groups under this new leadership council, and hopefully have much more structure in terms of how we make decisions around kind of key things like housing first, coordinated entry, housing development, things like that. Here's the leadership council. So we have the 5 elected officials, and I mentioned we have 4 other members of this TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. The TAC is comprised of 25 members that will provide support and key guidance to the overall leadership council. So the TAC is going to be comprised of a lot of different people, right? Nonprofit providers, philanthropy, hospitals, law enforcement, faith-based community, youth, education. That TAC is currently, there's an application out right now, so if you haven't gotten it, please let Gregory or somebody here know. I'll make sure I get it out to people. Applications are due by next Friday at 5 p.m. to me. I think my contact info will be on the last slide. Zoom tight, so somebody sneeze. And it's 25 members. There's going to be about 7 or 8 from the current COC board that will automatically move on to it. So there's still going to be around 18 people. And out of those 25, 4 at the first meeting, hopefully in November, the TAC will choose 4 people to go to the leadership council. One of those seats has to be somebody who is homeless or been homeless in the last 5 years. The other 3 will be at-large members from the TAC. So I really want to encourage people who have experienced homelessness to apply for that. As far as the other members go, the other 25, 24 in that case, there really should be high-level decision makers, whether that's county, nonprofit, etc. Next steps, the county on Tuesday designated their 2 reps, so the elected officials are all set. We are recruiting for the TAC, as I mentioned right now. Towards the end of this month, there will be a selection committee who will select the 25 members of the TAC. That will be the 5 elected officials and 4 people from the current COC board who will do those selections. We will staff it, but we're not making those decisions, we meaning the COC. We'll have the first meeting of the TAC in November, and at that meeting they will select their reps to the Leadership Council, and they will establish these 6 key task groups. In December, we're going to have the first Leadership Council meeting once we get that scheduled. At the same time, we're going to have recommendations before that Leadership Council of funding priorities for the Homeless Emergency Aid Program. We're not selecting projects yet. We'll be selecting priorities in terms of buckets of funding. We can send the state what we think we're going to use it for, but we won't actually have projects coming in until January. Next one. So HEAP is the big funding pot right now. It's the California State Emergency Aid Program. This is $500 million to the state to counties in California for emergency homeless interventions. As people have mentioned, as Councilmember Cole mentioned, if a jurisdiction must declare a shelter crisis, so the county has done that, and City of Santa Rosa has done that. City of Petaluma is going to be doing it in a few weeks. Cloverdale and Sebastopol has submitted a declaration, and the City of Cloverdale is on board as well. Most cities are choosing to do that. We are the only eligible applicant for the state. It has to be the Continuum of Care lead agency, so only the CDC on behalf of the county can apply. But cities can apply to us just as nonprofits can. Broad range of services. I know we don't have a ton of time today, but next Thursday, it's in your packets. We're having a Continuum of Care quarterly membership meeting. I'm going to have breakout groups at that, so we're soliciting input so far for HEAP recommendations. But as you can see, they've left it pretty broad. So outreach, prevention, rental assistance, permanent supportive housing, eviction prevention, capital improvements. A jurisdiction has to declare that shelter crisis if they want to enhance a shelter, build, do housing, etc. Collaborative process. I'm going to skip through this one a little bit. I mean, we have to show evidence of a collaborative process. So we have had this meeting today. We had a meeting of over 20 homeless and formerly homeless transition age youth, 18 to 24, a few weeks ago, and they provided incredible input. We have the meeting next week, and we're also holding meetings with different jurisdictions and cities. Reach out to me if you'd like another meeting. I'm happy to provide it. I think the shelter crisis declaration I covered. Any jurisdiction that doesn't declare a crisis is ineligible. I think I covered all that there. Move on from that. General use, HEAP funds are intended to provide immediate assistance. The parameters of the program are intentionally broad, and it does have to, all activities have to align with housing first. That is state law. There's going to be state laws, so the state has made that very clear in its regulations that activities have to align with housing first. And again, here, I think I covered this earlier. I'm happy to talk offline or more in depth at the end of this with questions. Some of the examples that the state have given us are showed above. Sure.
What, is this the same heat that, that the city goes through that process before they do a sweep of a homes and cabin?
No, different heat. Same acronyms. I'm not sure what the other one stands for, though. This one's brand new. Kalia?
We all put our emails on our signage. Can you guys send us the PowerPoints so that we can keep a hold of this data?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I pulled a lot of the HEAP stuff straight from a bigger HEAP PowerPoint that has more detail than this, too. I should mention state staff are going to be at the meeting next Thursday, so they're going to help me in doing the presentation. These are going to be actually the people who are administering the funding. As part of HEAP, there is a set-aside for homeless youth. So at least 5% of the total amount of $12 million has to go to services and supports for transition-age youth who are experiencing homelessness 18 to 24. Our youth, this is their recommendation. Our kind of key youth stakeholders have recommended that a proportional percentage go to homeless youth. So, for example, 18 to 24-year-olds make up 17% of our total homeless population. So they're recommending a higher amount given the extremely high need of homeless youth in our area. That's their recommendation. This is really important as far as the timeline. So this is when people are submitting projects or down the line after we put our application to the state in, we'll run a local competition here. But 50% of the funds have to be allocated by January 2020. Everything has to be spent by June 2021. So this is an aggressive timeline. It also means that we're going to be encouraging projects to think of stuff that's sustainable. This is one-time funding, so it's not going to be here after June 2021. The drawback from that is we're going to have to think very creatively about permanent supportive housing or any sort of housing, because you can't build most housing in 2 years. So it's looking at different things like rehab or buildings that can be quickly converted. And I'll go through CASH really quickly. There's another funding stream called the California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program. That's roughly $843,000. We've put our application in for that. This takes the place of, again, similar stuff. This one's more similar to traditional emergency solutions grant, ESG, if you guys are familiar with that. So a little less flexibility than HEAP. Rapid rehousing, emergency shelter. You'll see that navigation centers are eligible under this and under HEAP. Navigation centers have been used in San Francisco and other places as well, so that's something definitely to think about. As well as street outreach, systems planning, HMIS, homeless management information system improvements. Again, our local process, this was built off of a previous California ESG program, so we already have some allocations from the previous funding stream. About half of it had been recommended last year, because this is a new funding stream built on another one. But we're still going to have probably close to $400,000 to go out for competition under this. As I said, it replaces the previous California ESG program. And if you guys remember, a couple years back in 2016, the state of California, or the HUD and the state of California, severely cut that funding stream. We lost over $800,000 to our continuum of care when that happened. So there's been a consistent pressure on lawmakers to replace that. So this CASH is replacing some of that. And next steps, again, HEAP and CASH funding priorities will be finalized in December at the Leadership Council meeting. Don't have the date on that yet, but we'll have that figured out shortly. We will submit the HEAP application in December. We've already submitted our administrative application for CASH. It was easy. It's like 30 minutes of work. They made it really easy. Hoping to identify the HEAP funding or receive it somewhere in January, February. Again, they say within 60 days, which is lightning fast for the state. And then as soon as we put that application into the state, we're going to start developing a local RFP to go out. So local request for proposals to eligible projects in the community. We will have a performance evaluation task group. We've had an evaluation committee that has ranked our COC projects for years. So we are developing a new evaluation committee for subject matter experts on that. I think one more thing, I'll add this, just one thing that our office has been thinking a lot about, as well as other stakeholders. As Councilmember Combs mentioned, Functional Zero is something that is grounded in the new Leadership Council and the COC. You know, as much as we've struggled having our first homeless count increase in 7 years, I do want to point out that in terms of some key subpopulations, families and vets, the community has had a lot of success in reducing homeless numbers in those categories. So veterans, we had a high of 400 back in 2011, and that's all the way down to 207. We cut in half, but it's been pretty stubborn around that 200 mark the last couple years. And then families, similarly, a high of 200 down to about 101 this year. So functional zero simply means we're housing more people. As soon as somebody becomes homeless, we have the capability to house them immediately. So thinking about how we can use our resources to effectively get to functional zero to families, vets, youth, so that we can really focus our resources on the largest homeless population, which is single adults. That is our single biggest one in the county. And so there's my info. That's Eddie Vedder. He's one of my faves. Chris is over here as well. She works in our office, so I don't know if we have time for questions, but I want to make sure Gregory.
No questions.
I have a question.
We're going to hold on questions because we've got an awful lot of people who are going to be talking. I want to thank Michael and Carissa for the presentation. These next few slides and these comments are homeless action, not CDC, so I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. And I want to start off by saying that this is the start of turning dreams into real proposals. As Michael said, this is not the end of this is the start of it. I'm really glad that the CDC is starting to put real project ideas, allow project ideas to be submitted to the CDC and to the Leadership Council, and I look forward to all of you and I participating in their workshops. This is a workshop Homeless Action put on because we really wanted to get started and we wanted to bring it to all of you as soon as possible. This is the bigger picture. I want to give you 4 or 5 slides that really paint the larger picture of the process. And we want to try and build hope. That's why we had you put your indication of hope on the beginning. We think this is the start of something that can give hope to a lot of us, but it'll take some work. Actually, I want the first one. Go forward. Okay, resources. Why hope? All right, 3 or 4 reasons. One, there are a lot more resources to homeless housing than we've ever had before. The legislature's put $500 million into homeless housing in a variety of ways. Some say $700 million. Those projects, HEAP, CEST, lots of other things will be coming down the pike, and we want all of us to participate in that process. There are also other things. Measure N, the bond that's on the ballot that we want you all to vote for. Prop 2, No Place Like Home. $2 billion the state has. Prop 1 existing. All those programs that got cut back by the state and federal government, we'd like to get some more money back into them, and the bond that Prop 1 funds will help do that. Santa Rosa and Sonoma County development issues, you've all been reading about things they're trying to do to get more housing. There's more state and federal government initiatives and other things coming down, and sadly, everyone's insecurity about their housing. All of these are resources we need to use. And it gives me hope that they're all sort of coming together at a point in time. Back up to 2. Secondly, all these decisions are local. This is not Sacramento telling us what to do. This is a local leadership council, local city, local initiatives. Everybody says all politics are local. This is the time to make this politics, this city, this county, meet its needs. So those are the resources to help us do local control. City councils, housing authorities, communities, neighborhood associations. Okay, 3. It's going to be very transparent. This is not going to be done behind closed doors. This is going to be a process that we will both improve our insistence for follow-up about what happens to clients. There's money in this to do that better. We'll be measuring our own success better, and we'll be reporting out more frequently and in more creative ways so that we can all understand. Next. All right, our promise as Homeless Actions is that we will be there with you all the way. This conference is an illustration of that. We have a website with a master calendar. We'll put all the meetings on it. We hope that you will all follow it, and we will do what we can as volunteers. One more. We took a survey of everybody who was Michael and Carissa's around the state on a survey monkey last week, trying to find out if we were ahead of the curve, behind the curve, were we an outlier, and the preliminary results indicate we're right in the midst of everybody else. All over the state, they're trying to figure out when they submit this. They're waiting, all of them, most of them, till December, because it's going to take some time to figure out what it is they want to submit to the state. Now, remember, we have categories for expenditure on the wall, which we're trying to get you to tell us what those categories should contain. Remember, the state application, the city or the county is going to turn in just has budget numbers. It's how to spend the 12 million. Where do we put the money? It's not what program we fund. So it shouldn't take us a lot of work to do that. But we still need to do it deliberately. We need to get ideas out, but we don't have to have contracts or real projects that are ready to go January 1st. So you can see what the rest of it said. They're all doing collaborations. They're all doing crisis resolutions. And we will continue to try to probe the rest of the state for both ideas and for how the program gets rolled out, to keep all of us in the loop. I'm sorry, but my lips are getting real dry.
Both the city of Santa Rosa and the county of Sonoma put in general fund dollars into homeless services. Will those monies go into this coordinated planning process, Mike?
That's a question that probably Julie should answer as the city representative. Maybe Jack can do it. But basically, it's my understanding that this joint powers agreement that's being set up, this leadership council, is supposed to be looking at all resources, including the city's resources. The city has told the county they retain the right to make independent judgments. So I don't think they're going to let the county or this leadership council dictate exactly what the city will do. But both Julie and Jack and Chris and everybody else have told me that they will take some guidance from this leadership council. The whole reason for the leadership council, as a result of the study by Homebase, was to unfragment this system, to create a unified system that gave everybody the same information and helped them make better decisions.
So the city won't donate some money to
I don't think the city's going to grant...
Just look at the directive?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Maybe Jack can... are you nodding back there, Jack? Not Jack's nodding. Okay. All right, so that's really all I wanted to say. And
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that we have a really packed schedule, and your questions are very welcome, and there are Post-its inside of your folders. If you have a burning question that you're not going to be able to remember, please write it down on your Post-it, and if it's in one of these areas, it can be added up here. Also, we'll be working more with these posters. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Gregory, for a wonderful presentation of critically important information. Now I want to tell you about, I'm Kathleen Finnegan, by the way. I'm a member of Homeless Action, and we homeless advocates have become far too accustomed to being ignored by those in power who have the ability to change things. We nonetheless submitted a report detailing some of the absolute horrible, indescribable treatment that homeless people are routinely and systematically subjected to here in Sonoma County. And we took it to the Sonoma County Commission on Human Rights, and they listened. What a victory this is. I'm so pleased to introduce to you the chair of the Human Rights Commission, Kevin Jones.
Kathleen, thank you. And thank you for inviting me, and it's great to meet all of you here. And thank you for the work that you're doing and the continued focus you're putting on this critical issue. The Commission on Human Rights in Sonoma County is a body that's appointed by the Board of Supervisors. So we have up to 3 commissioners representing the various districts within the county. As a commission that's appointed by the Board of Supervisors, we have the ability to influence and to pay attention and hopefully to amplify the issues that we hear from people in the community. We don't have subpoena power, enforcement power, or anything like that. But what we try to do is make sure that we are listening to members of our community, particularly those people who are living at the margins, who are feeling oppressed, and whose voices aren't being heard. And so there are a number of different issues that members of the commission take a look at based on what we hear from the community. One of those certainly has been issues that the people who are unhoused and unsheltered have been facing in Sonoma County, recognizing that housing, security, safety, food, and shelter are all human rights that everyone deserves as a member of this community. So very grateful that members of Homeless Action, Kathleen, Adrian, Scott, came to us and shared with us their experiences and invited us to go out and take a look for ourselves about what members of the shelterless community were experiencing in the camps and other places, and members of the commission took time to do that. And one of the things that was clear to us was that we have two kinds of problems in Sonoma County. One was we have a long-term concern, a problem that needs to be solved over time, but probably more importantly for us as members of the commission was there were immediate problems. There was an emergency and a crisis where people today were facing problems. They tried to solve some of those problems being in community in encampments, and there were issues with the encampments and how those were evolving, but simply asking them to move on was not a solution that solved their problems. And we witnessed a number of things that were truly concerning. And the one thing that we have the ability to do as a member of the commission is to shine a light on that. And so what we did was took the recommendations that Homeless Action provided us, added our own thoughts and concerns, and basically passed a resolution that we sent to both the Board of Supervisors and the Santa Rosa City Council, asking them to do whatever they could to focus more funds and resources immediately on the problems, both long-term and short-term. And we recognize, certainly, that the Board of Supervisors sees the problem. The county, we just heard from Michael, is doing work about how to put those resources forward. We have had some presentations and great allies from members of the Santa Rosa City Council. Jack certainly has come and talked to us about solutions and possibilities. On November 3rd, the Commission is working with Councilmember Julie Combs to put on a program that we would invite all of you to attend, talking about innovative solutions, and we've invited Sharon Lee, who's the Executive Director of the Low Income Housing Institute in Seattle, to come and talk about the things that they have found successful in Seattle in terms of small living structures. River King is also going to be part of that program, sharing her proposal, and we're looking for as many voices as possible, particularly those people who might be skeptical about whether or not tiny structures and villages are feasible in Sonoma County, to help raise and share those concerns and hear from the experience in Seattle, how they've overcome them or how they've mitigated those concerns. So 5:30 to 7 on November 3rd, if you can put that on your calendar, that would be great. The one thing that I would just leave you with is there's something that's unique about this crisis that is, I think, more than just what Councilwoman Combs talked about when she talked about boiling the frog, and sort of the problem not felt as acutely as a natural disaster has been. And that is that as a community, I think Sonoma County has great capacity for compassion and are able to find resources to help their neighbors in a crisis. In this particular crisis, I think there's something additional to the fact that it's kind of a long and slowly bubbling up crisis or event that has reached crisis proportion. The other thing that we take a look at from the human rights perspective is the idea of failure to act or slowness to act or obstacles to act based on discrimination. And I think that one of the things we see is that not everyone in the community looks at people who are unsheltered and sees neighbors, friends, and family. They see the other. There's a stigma associated with that, being unsheltered, to the extent that there may be addiction issues or mental health issues that compound that, is often an obstacle that makes it more difficult for us to act as if our family is in crisis. And the reality is our family is in crisis. And so it's our hope as members of the Commission on Human Rights that we continue to shine light on the importance of this crisis and hopefully be able to contribute to opportunities and recommendations that allow us to reach a solution, both in the longer term and in the immediate need. Winter is coming.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start our, if you have questions, please write them down on the Post-its. Just a reminder, we're going to start our first round of presentations, and this is under the outline of capital. These are actual things and projects that people have. Our first presenter is Amy Appleton. She's the Executive Director of SHARE Sonoma County. Over the past 3 years, this organization, which is operated out of Petaluma People Services, has created more than 354 home shares all over Sonoma County. Recently, they've begun working in Sebastopol, and there's so much more. Here's Amy.
So a correction, no longer affiliated with Petaluma People. I have, under my nonprofit umbrella is Share California. And one of my programs is Share Sonoma County. So started in August of 2014. To date, I've done about 358 shares. ShareFire was started right on the day of the fires. And we did 108 shares then. We continue to do placements. In Sebastopol, we have 19 active with 2 pending, and now we have a program with Healdsburg underway. So ShareFire is an emergency home share program. I received a call from Una Glass and on the 9th of October, and that night I started ShareFire. It's still active. Just this earlier this week, I placed Art B. He's 80, looks 70, acts 60. He has bone cancer. Was living in his car since the fires, and I placed him in a service exchange in Healdsburg. He's taking care of a matriarch who is dementia, and he provides very specific services. One of the things that was a direct result of the fire is that people who sense their vulnerability, who have an extra bedroom, started calling, and these are people over 60. So we're continually getting those types of providers, so we have plenty of housing. My focus, or SHARE's focus, is homeless prevention. And this is with people who are limited Social Security, probably $900 a month is their income. We're working very closely with those who are homeless, living in shelters. We work very closely with Sloan House, for example. We work with people at risk, and they're couch surfing, but certainly vulnerable. Our home share program is basically, it's a living arrangement. You're in someone's home, you're home sharing with them, they have an extra bedroom. So you have to be amenable to that type of housing. Some people just wouldn't be able to do that, but plenty of people do. It's quite a lovely thing to witness when I match someone, a provider with a seeker, and they start to bond, It's quite magical, it's beautiful, and I love it. So the value of share, it's really interesting. The more complex of a home share, the value of share, the monetary value of share, if you were to monetize it, is pretty amazing. For example, I have a home share in Sebastopol for a quadriplegic whose family cared for her for 10 years until I got a call. The woman from Sloan is still there, Rebecca, for 2.5 years with her son. On paper, she didn't look so good. And she has thrived, and we're all really proud of her. We have another lady who is there who was homeless, and now we have an empty bedroom, and I'm taking a lady from COTS to interview there on Monday. Bless you.
Thank you.
So to witness this, it is a community in itself. It's a thriving community, and they all support each other. I see share is as a stepping stone for people. I get people out of homelessness. They get into a share. They might last a year and a half or whatever. Their name comes up on Section 8 or Bethlehem Towers, what have you. So that's kind of what's happening for me, is we get someone out of homelessness, put them in share, and then they end up in another type of permanent housing. Plenty of examples of that's happening. The criteria for a participant is that the seeker must go through a background check. It's very carefully orchestrated. We don't screen the provider so much. We don't really work with those who are chronic homeless. It's hard to place someone like that into a home share. There's plenty of people, 20,000 or more, who are couch surfers. People who are getting older can't afford to live anywhere. So that's my population. So we have 4 types of home share: rent exchange, service exchange, a combination of the two, and then we have community houses. So one of my favorite service exchanges is with a transgender woman. Her name is Constantine. He couldn't even walk, and he had a very loyal IHSS worker who worked there 7 days a week. Very little support other than that. I matched him with a gentleman from Redwood Gospel Mission. He's been there for a year and a half, and he was an addict and was at Redwood Gospel for at least 9 months before he became clean and sober, and he's thriving there as his Constantine. I mean, it's an amazing. Constantine was such a difficult woman, unbearable. All the agencies had stopped working with him, and now he's actually been, partly because he was in a lot of pain. He was in and out of the ER all the time, and so he's doing really well. So now I have resources. Up to this point, it's been me, for the most part. I have Leah, who's now going to the living room. They've been really helpful to accommodate her. She's interviewing all kinds of seekers, which is really exciting, because we have a ton of providers. And then I have Indigo, who came from COTS. She was their volunteer coordinator forever. And now she's doing all kinds of, she's working with seekers as well, and a lot of the back office support. I do have my flyer. I can put it out somewhere. And you please feel free to contact us.
Thank you, Amy. I got the pen. Here's the pen.
Oh, thank you.